Okay,
Yeah.
hey everybody, audience. This is Jared Deal. I'm the host of the Louder Now podcast. We just celebrated 4 years of podcasting. March 1st, 2019. Did a little Instagram post. So yeah, this is episode 145, and March 1st, 2019 was the first day that I put the first episode out there. And special thanks to Will for helping me and get it going. Thanks to Megan for making the first Louder Now podcast logo. So grateful for friends. I'm still here, guys, 4 years later. But today's guest is my friend Dalton Barrow, and he also goes by the DJ music name. Ready for it, guys? Oh man, this is where I should have a sound effect. Oblivion, right? Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, dude, how are you? Welcome to the podcast. It is early, guys. Just so you guys know, I know we
It is early.
it is. This is like the this is. I told Dalton this is the earliest I've ever recorded. But hey, we're here. It's a Saturday morning, and yeah, man, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited. And yeah, can't wait to talk.
Cool, man. So, when we first met, I didn't put it together because you listened to the Tim Concio episode and you know him, and Tim is a great guy and super talented musician, and I know Tim through church, and doing the episode with him was like a total blast. And but so I didn't know this, but I'm like, you're 16, right?
Yeah.
So the only reason why I asked that because I've only had one other guest who this girl Sarah, she was like a writer. She was like, I think just turned 18. And so you were the youngest guest to be on the podcast. So that's the other thing. So early morning, youngest guest, and you have a stage name. So already you're set apart from everyone else as being super awesome. So cool. Well, as I've done this podcast and as I've asked people questions, I think when people are a little bit older, I mean, I'm 37, so I mean, if like someone's in their 30s, it's like, oh, what was your childhood like, right? Like that's usually what I start with, like, what was your past like? But you're still fairly young, but where do you think your mental health journey began? And again, because you're kind of younger, do you have like a point in time where you would say, I started dealing with kind of maybe some anxiety or whatever? Or do you feel like it's been going on since you were like a little kid? That makes
Um,
sense.
yeah, so I think as far as I can remember, like maybe five or six, I've number one, I've always struggled with like anger management issues where it's always if something's going wrong in my life, I'll try to lash out in certain emotions and stuff like that, which definitely draws some rifts between like my relationships with other people.
Hmm.
Um, I think also it's been the anxiety and the I can never sit still because of ADHD and stuff like that that causes a bunch of issues with like grades and getting schoolwork done, which causes issues because then I want to go create content because I've always
Hmm.
wanted to just make music, make YouTube videos and stuff like that.
Right.
But I think everybody knows school comes first. But that definitely causes issues when AHT is saying like, yo, let's get up and run around and do all this other stuff. So it
Hmm.
definitely, yeah, that causes anxiety when I have grades that are probably in risk of failing and I'm just up at the middle of the night, like praying to God I can fix it.
Okay. Okay. So when you say ADHD, if people don't know what that means, I mean, it's most people probably do, but it's attention deficit hyperactive disorder, and I'm sure it's been misdiagnosed or overdiagnosed because um, I think we have some things in common. I feel like I am creative too. And I look back at like school, which was 20 years ago or 30, 1999. I was in, what grade are you in now? You're a sophomore?
I'm currently a sophomore. Yeah.
Okay, so for me, it was 2001, if that just gives you an idea, like right before technology really took off. Like, I don't think I had a phone until senior year of high school, if that gives you some context.
Yeah.
I had like a little Sprint flip phone with like an antenna thing that like you had to move the antenna up and then you could push it down.
It
Isn't
sounds
that
like a
weird?
walkie-talkie.
It,
Like,
it looks like a toy at like Toys R Us. So, yeah, it's so funny as a side note, like how did I get a hold of my parents? That's what I'm trying to remember. Like hey, if your mom's not, in front of the school at 3:30, you're like, what did I do? Like find person with a phone, you figure it out. You like go home with a friend and then anyway, total side note. So, but I had a similar thing because I think I had ADD like every day. But though for you, did you ever see a doctor about it? Have you ever had a diagnosis of that, or is that just something you kind of just figured out through maybe
so I've
the
gone,
internet?
yeah, I've
Yeah.
gone to multiple doctors that I've taken tests with. They've all said like you definitely have ADHD. Um, Anxiety, I think, is more of a self-diagnosis. I don't really know how they would test for anxiety, but it's more of I know another I went to one doctor that said like you definitely have ADHD. There's a chance you could have like a little bit of autism on there, but probably
Oh,
not
interesting.
much.
Okay. And to your knowledge, do you think because usually when doctors are trying to diagnose people, I know this is like kind of an annoying part of the system, but it's like you have to kind of answer all these questions about like, does it run in the family? And you're like, I don't know. I gotta ask my mom. Like, why does that matter? I'm struggling right now. But do you
Yeah.
think that that's stuff that have you seen your parents deal with that stuff, or do you think maybe it's also attached to which we'll talk about more, which is sort of the creativity and stuff?
Yeah, so I'm actually adopted, so I don't really know how that runs in the birth family, but
Oh,
I know
okay.
that my I know that I'm pretty sure nobody really has any issues in my family. I'm almost positive about that, which I just find strange that like I did.
Yeah, you're kind of and do you have any are you the only one that's been adopted into, so you have siblings, but they're uh
Yeah, I'm the only one that's been adopted.
oh, cool, man. That's awesome, man. Yeah, I actually don't think I knew that. But okay, so when you're talking about creativity, like for you, and you're talking about school, is there like a certain subject that you have a hard time getting homework done? Because I think people who are your age that would be listening to this would relate to that. Like, because I know for me, I was really bad at math, and then even like reading, I never read any of the books I was supposed to read. Now,
Uh,
but now you have the internet, so you can cheat with like, summaries or anyway. No, don't do that. Don't cheat. But like,
don't cheat.
is it all just kind of sort of difficult because you're wanting to? Because I felt like I was like that when I was your age. I got a video camera. This is before phones, so like I was filming all the time, and I was always writing something, and I loved making hanging out with my friends, and it's like that was way more important than like chemistry. But it was like, oh man, dude, if I don't pass this, I'm not getting out of here. So is it like that? Is it all hard, or do you have a certain subject that's like, oh, I dread English or something?
I dread geometry and math in general. I do not like
Dang,
that subject.
same.
It's so bad. I can't I don't know if it's I don't get it or if it's just like sometimes I feel like there's too much to write down that I just don't want to write it down. So I'll try to like skip to the end or something. It's weird. It's I just don't understand math. It's really Like I understand the simple stuff like multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, but it's like when you bring out trigonometry and like all these other things, I'm like, why do I need to know this? I've never understood that.
I got you. Have you ever had to get a tutor or something? I know maybe sometimes that costs money, but like because I know I look back, I'm like, man, I definitely needed a math and like junior year. So you're coming up on junior year soon. Like I had to do chemistry anyway. So okay, I got you. So math is sort of what do you have to do in high school though? Is it like don't you just have to do sort of like a basic kind of math and then you're good, or do you have to do harder math, or I
I
don't know
think
how it
I'm
works.
not positive. For me, it's harder math. I mean, it's
I got you.
we're taking like
Yeah,
I think pre-calculus or something. We're doing right now. We're working on trigonometry, which is like awful. But then we're doing calculus and like I'm not sure what they have you do junior year. I haven't really looked ahead to that.
I got you. Okay. So yeah, so I get okay. So you feel like you have this ADHD, you have a creative aspiration. Um, and then as far as like how do you think that you cope with the symptoms of these things? Because I think that that's interesting. It's different for people. Do you think you cope with the creativity? Because that's something that's been written about in lots of, like people kind of like want not mental illness, but like sometimes the mania or the anxiety, turns into like
Creativity.
an album, right? Like I just wrote an album because I didn't sleep. It's like, whoa, well, you should go to sleep actually. But you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like that's not you get what I'm saying. You don't want the
Yeah.
anxiety to, but is it like that? Like do you feel like you just cope by like are you kind of like a introvert with your creativity where you lock
I
yourself
think
in the
I'm definitely
studio and yeah,
I have this thing. I've always done it. It's where if I'm having a rough day, I'll like close my door, turn off all the lights in my room, just bring out my computer, and I'll just like close my eyes and like work on like I'll think of melodies, I'll get my piano, play something on it, and it's like if I'm having a bad day, it's going to be like it's either going to be a happy song or it's going to be a really sad song. So it's going to be kind of two of those, and then I'll like text like artists that I know, and I'll go like, "Yo, would you be happy to like sing on this or do something?" So I can, and sometimes I won't even release it. It'll just be more of that's where the emotions will go into, and that's when I feel like I do my best like art.
nice. Okay, so yeah, you kind of well, a lot of creativity is, you know, your inspiration, it's kind of both. It's like the extroverted part is you pull inspiration from the world, right? Which is comes from, I mean, experiencing things like going out and like observing people, or like I don't know if you like to people watch, or you just like you've been in an airport and you're just like observing people, and it's interesting, so you could get ideas from that, like eavesdropping, well, not eavesdrop, like hearing another conversation. You're like, oh, that's interesting, and then but then it turns you into an introvert when you actually go and do the thing because it's like you got to focus. And so that's cool, man. And what's your favorite thing to do? Is it making music?
Um, I'd say making music or just like streaming and doing like gaming and content with my friends because I feel like that's when I'm able to like show who I really am that my like antisocial side won't let me show to most people. So yeah, I'd say definitely doing just creativity in general, like content.
That's cool. Like you get on Twitch and
Yeah.
what's your favorite game? I'm like not a gamer, but I know there's like Fortnite and I don't know, Doom, or I don't know, Call of Duty. I'm not very game first, but
You already said it. The first game,
oh,
Fortnite is
Fortnite.
definitely that's all I really have done. I'm trying to expand it because I feel like I don't want to be known as like the kid that always streams the same game, but it's definitely
Oh, right.
I love that game. It's very fun and also angering, but it's fun.
Angering, yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm more of a like movie TV show person. That's my excuse. But I had a phase when I was younger where I was like into computer games, and Warcraft was one of them, which I know it's like still around. But anyway, back to you. So when you're saying like, because I think I've watched people stream, and it's like, do you feel like do people see your facial expressions when you're streaming? Or is it
I
more just
think
like you said,
it's
yeah,
more of I do faceless creation because I want most of the it's more of I've always loved podcasts. That's my thing. I've tried to do my own, then I just never had time to keep doing it. So definitely props to you for continuing this for so long. But
thanks.
with
Yeah.
me, I've always loved like talking about stuff, but then there's like visuals. So it's more of I'll play like a game of Fortnite, but then in the background it'll be like I'll be playing with my friends, but we'll be talking about like maybe if I go like, "Oh, did you hear the new Oblivion song just dropped?" And they'll be like, "Yeah, man, it's really good. I love this part at 1 minute and 32 seconds." And I'll be like, "I know." So it's more we just kind of
Yeah.
talk, but we play the game, but in the end it's more of you're joining to listen to our like crazy conversations. We do once in a while script like streams where it's like they'll start arguing and I'll be like, "Whoa, break it up," just for I guess content and entertainment. But yeah, it's more of I think every time all of us go live is we try to give it our all and we try to make it an enjoyable place because I know if I was having a tough day, I'd like to go into like a place where people are just making jokes and like talking about stuff that I'd want to talk about with somebody.
Yeah. That's fun, man. That's cool. So you stay up late doing that sometimes?
Hmm.
Getting you in trouble with your parents, man. Don't let them watch. Don't let them listen to this. No, I'm kidding.
No,
They're like, oh, we find out you've been staying up till midnight. So, um, yeah, that's awesome. So I think I was assuming when I first met you that you were a DJ. Is that true, or are you just you're no, you're more of like you're making music, but do you go and like MC a party? Is that something that sounds fun to you? Like,
Yeah, so Tim, I think last year threw the show apart,
hmm.
Humanity, and he said this year, supposedly we haven't figured anything out, but I may be doing a set apart.
Oh, that's right. You told me about that. Oh, was that at Humanity Church?
I think so. Yeah, it was
Oh,
either Humanity or like a loft near there. I'm not
oh,
positive.
right. Yeah. Well, he's coming. DJ'd. We're talking about Tim Concio, by the way, Streetbox DJ. He was on the podcast. Everyone. Yeah. Well, we did a couple. I used to be a part of a Monday night group, and he came, and we did a couple karaoke nights, and he's DJ'd those. He's done it like 3 times in the last 3 or 4 times in the last few years. 3 times. But anyway, yeah, that'd be dope, man. Well, you're in Arizona, so you gotta drive
I
six
have to
hours.
drive.
Well, dude, I would love that. I actually, Tim's a part of a band with his brothers and I think someone else, and they did like a show. It was like right before COVID, so this is like 3 years ago.
Oh,
It was like a Friday night, and they did it when we had our old building. We had like a church building. Now we rent out the Fox Theater, so I think it's probably a little harder to do things unless it's a Sunday. But anyway, he did a show, but I missed it. I don't know what I was doing. So, but yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, I mean, DJing in person seems to be that looks like that would be fun, like
yeah.
doing weddings and stuff like that. Um, so with school, how many classes do you have?
I have 6 each day. That's not including lunch, but yeah, it's I have English, then I have math, then I have my favorite class, which is criminology. That's just I think
Oh,
that's
nice.
awesome. Then I have biology, then I get lunch, then I have what is it? History and then Spanish, and then I get to go home and ditch my homework and do content creation.
That's my homework. Okay, and so you have to be. What time is your first class?
I normally have to wake up around 6:40 because I'm not a morning person.
Oh yeah.
So it's more of I have to mentally wake up, and then my first class is like 7:40, I think.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this before, but my sophomore year, so this would have been it was actually the year that September 11th happened. So 2001, I had no first period, so I didn't have to be at school until like 10:30.
Lucky.
Yeah, and I was up like sometimes I had hockey practice late at night, so I would sleep in, but like I remember watching Arthur a lot, which was like this PBS show. It was just so silly. I was like, I'm 16. The show is for like 10-year-olds, but I love this show. Like making my eggs and eating super healthy toaster strudels. Do you remember toaster strudels? I
I
think they're
never
still
actually got to
around.
have them. That's what's
Anyway,
crazy.
it's like I mean I don't want to insult the Pop Tart, but it's if you're going for like just pure more sugar. Like you know how if you heat up a Pop Tart, it's gooey in the middle, but like the
Oh
toaster
yeah.
strudel was more like I don't know. I think it was like the flaky crust made it better to me, and then also the just pure sugar. It's like a horrible idea for breakfast. Just the what is it? Like the vanilla icing. So I would have like
Oh.
eggs and toaster strudels. I'm like this is okay, this is why we need to lose weight now. That's where it all started, guys. But yeah, that's cool, man. Well, I appreciate you, talking about some of your struggles. I was gonna say, so did you ever take medication for ADHD?
I took methylphenidate. I think that's the name. It
Oh,
was
probably
more
Ritalin
focusing.
or okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
something like that. It was for focusing and for um it was more of calming people down. I think that's the purpose of the medicine.
Okay.
But the main issue is that for me, it would like tire me down. So then my content that I would create like after taking would get worse because it was like my friends would be like, "Yo, do you want to get on?" And I'd be like, "I'm too tired. I can't." And then I just go to
Hmm.
sleep at like 4 p.m. And that was really bad for I think that made my mental health like so much worse because I started getting like anxiety. I started getting depressed, and I started like it was more of I would have these weird moments where I'd hear voices in my head that sounded just like me, and they're saying like get up and go like make content with your friends, and then another voice would say back like I can't. I'm really tired. I can't move. And it
Hmm.
was this weird thing where I felt crazy, and I asked people, and they were like, "No, you're not crazy. You're just stressed." And I was like, "Why do I feel crazy?"
Yeah. Well, the I'm not an expert. I mean, I think I've been on meds myself for 15 years. Okay, which is a lot. And recently I've been or I mean maybe the last year just deconstructing my thoughts around meds. If you can manage whatever it is that you're going through, and obviously sleep is really important, right? So like if you're not sleeping, a lot of times that's what turns people to get medication, but especially you being so young, um, if you can use this music thing and this creativity thing as a way to cope, and your friends and your community, your parents, possibly a counselor, a therapist, and oh, we haven't talked really about faith yet either, but also God. If you can do that, uh, I would recommend that you stay on that path of just trying to kind of deal with it without the medication. That's my opinion. So you're doing good, man. Do you identify with like the Christian faith, or what is your like spiritual influence, or what do you?
Definitely Christian. That's
Okay,
just where I
yeah.
found a lot of comfort going to shout out SBC, Scottsdale Bible Church.
Oh, dude, I was born in Scottsdale. What?
Yeah,
That's where you go?
that's where I go every Sunday. I love
Scottsdale Bible Church.
just going there.
Dude, that's dope, man. Yeah. what do you like about the church? Is it like what is it a denomination, or are you just dig in the people?
I think it's just more of they're they're so serious about the topic of God, and the preachers are always so into their like sermons, and I'm like, I love this. It's like the way they talk about it is so in love with the faith that it's like I go because I like hearing people talk about stuff very passionately, like they love the topic they're talking about. And when people are talking about God in such a way as like they're preaching everything they know, like it's just everything about it is so perfect, and I feel at home there. Everybody welcomes you. There's never once been like an argument by two people like ever. I've never seen it. Like I think there have been other places where you walk by and there's like people arguing at church. Everyone's like waving to each other, being friendly, and I just
Yeah,
like love that. It's a community.
nice. That's awesome. Is it like a fairly big church, like a lot of people, or a couple
This
hundred,
one,
or
it just got bigger. They expanded a little bit ago where it's like a lot bigger. They added more seating, more rows, so it's kind of like I'd say half of a stadium is is kind of the adult place because there was a kids place that I can't go to. Then there's a teenager place, and then there's the like adult place. They split it off because they didn't want like kids running around during the like session, I guess.
hmm.
But it was more of I like the adult place because they have the bands that play, and it was just I like that because it was more serious than like the other places because they would have like pastors that were really good at explaining it to kids, and then they'd have pastors that were good at explaining it to teenagers. But I would always just kind of go to the adult one because number one, that's where my mom would always go, and I just felt more comfortable there.
Hmm.
So that's really, I guess it was, I felt more comfortable being around adults, and I think I always have. So that's just where I decided to go.
That's why you're on the podcast talking to an adult like me. I'm super adult, man. So
I'm lonely.
I'm just kidding. No, well, I mean, I think that, well, you're not really a kid, but you're a teenager. But like one style of parenting is sort of like talk to your kids like they're adults, like when they're younger, right? Because kids are way, way more intuitive and intelligent than sometimes we could give them credit for, right? And I think that that's something to be nurtured of like you learn about life and like even with the creativity example, right? Like I was a long time ago watched this like Michael Jackson documentary. I know there's probably like multiple documentaries about him, right? And it just talked about how like he's in the Jackson Five with his brothers, and he's young and he's talented, but he was always going to these parties where he was like talking to people who are older in the business doing the music. And I think that like that's awesome. Like that probably helped him like work on his craft. So with anything like spirituality, faith, if you want to level up, you just hang out with people who are like older than you, right? Or like you go hang out with an artist that's like, in their 30s, and you're like a teenager, and be like, "Hey man, teach me everything you know." So, yeah, dude, that's awesome. Um yeah, that's cool. I mean, I've been going to church my whole life too myself, and part of this podcast has been trying to kind of, you know, take the faith talk and kind of merge it into other things. So what are you looking forward to doing like in the future? What are you working? You just dropped a song. You just sent that to me
Yeah.
last night, right? So, and what's do you have a plan for when you're making, is it a little all over the place, or are you like working on an album, or you trying to do some kind of live thing, or like what are you working on right now?
So I think I was working on an album that I ended up releasing, but I had a bunch of remixes on that album that I did for like bigger artists. But the problem was you need legal like documentation to release that on all platforms and earn
Okay.
like money from it. So I kind of just went like, you know what, we're not counting that as an album anymore. So I kind of just said, you know, this is going to be an exclusive on this website. We're going to leave it. Um, I released that single last night, which will be on all platforms. But my main thing is I want to release singles for a little bit. I have a friend who is trying to get into the music scene that I want to help him. He's trying to start like a show, like a TV show or something like that.
Oh, cool.
That I'm very excited for that. He said I can like voice act, and I've voice acted before.
Nice.
And overall, I'm just trying to make some good stuff. I haven't really set a plan for what I'm gonna do. I'd love to perform at a part, but yeah,
Nice.
that's really it.
Awesome. I'm assuming at your age, counselors and people are talking to you about college. Is that something that you think about, or are you just like, I want to do music?
Um, well,
Yeah.
there was this program at my school called EVIT. They were offering it. They're like, you can like sign up with our thing and we'll drive you every single day after doing 3 periods of school to our campus where you can do like radio design and all this other stuff. And I was like, okay, like let's see what it's about. So they had an open house and I went to it, and the problem was they were working on this weird like DAW I've never seen before, which for those who don't know, DAW is digital audio workspace.
Okay.
It was they had a weird I don't remember what it was called, but it was this strange like music software they were using, and I'm only used to Ableton. And the problem was my mom had brought me there and she was like he is so talented. He's like one of the best. And they're like, okay, well, we'll definitely put him up at the higher like spots in our classes. But the problem was my concern was I would be like not the best because I don't know how to use the software. And I
Oh,
think
okay.
after coming in with all of that talk, like going like I'm the best here, and then seeing I don't even know how to use the software, I was kind of like, maybe this isn't where I need to be. And
Hmm.
so now I'm kind of thinking to myself, like, do I want to go to college? Because my best friend in the world lives in Rochester, New York. And my main
Oh,
thing is
nice.
we want to move into like a content house, sort of like when we're both 18, probably somewhere if we can get enough money together. But I
Oh,
don't know. It's
like
more, I don't want to go to college.
dude. I mean, if you know what you want to do, if you don't know what you want to do, college is really confusing because you have to have a plan. You can't just go and like kind of randomly like I'm gonna take a couple. So that's cool, man. So you would live with a bunch of people and and just make stuff together and do shows
Yeah, just like
like
do a
that.
bunch
Yeah.
of creation. I had an idea for we have like 4 rooms next to each other that are specifically meant for like being soundproof so we can stream and like game in 4 rooms next to each other. It's more
Nice, man.
we have so much envisioned that I always tell them, I'm like, remember there's a budget and there's like stuff we can't do, but yeah.
That's dope, man. Yeah. Well, it sounds like to sort of summarize some things, like you're aware of uh symptoms or you're aware of some of the challenges that you have with what you said, right? Like ADHD and sometimes anxiety. It seems to be connected to some very normal things, which is like being a teenager and also having this drive to be creative and then it sounds like you like the church that you're a part of, and then you're wanting to spend all your time doing things that are like the gift and the passion that you have, and that's really awesome, especially at your age to be at that kind of place. So, what advice would you give to people? Kind of always ask this before we end or whatever, but like, do you have any advice for people who are your age who might be dealing with any kind of mental health challenge or struggling just with being a teenager in general? Because what advice would you give to that person?
I definitely say number one, be yourself. I feel like that's always like pushed on you by people around you to like act differently because you want to be popular or do something else. But I always just say, like, be true to who you are. If you're going through something bad, I say, I think suicide should never even be a resort because there's always, it may not feel like it, but there's always going to be somebody in your life who cares about you. And mainly just if you have good friends around you, talk to them because there are people that want to help you out there.
Dude, awesome, man. Well, people don't know this, but we had a little bit of a technical difficulty, so we do have a StreamYard version of our talk from like a month ago, and then now we're gonna have this. So we got Dalton Barrow twice because Jared doesn't know what he's doing when it comes to streaming. So as
Yeah,
well,
it's on all platforms, is what I normally just say. But all right,
under
well, I
under
had
Oblivion. Oh,
you can all right, so on Spotify you can find it under my actual name, which is Dalton Barrow, because I have not figured out how to change it. But
okay.
you can find it under Dalton Barrow on essentially I think that's all platforms, just Dalton Barrow. YouTube you can find me at Oblivion Music FR. You can find me for the same thing on Twitter at Oblivion Music FR. And that's kind of where you can find me. It's just Oblivion FR.
Oh,
So yeah, I don't post much. I don't like. I don't know why. I just don't like doing it.
anyway, you're awesome, man. That's the point of this. I'm jealous of your following, so
Thank you.
I'm gonna have to end the Zoom call right now and go cope. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so you're on Instagram, Spotify, and then are you on Facebook too?
I want to make a Facebook. I
Okay.
haven't
Well,
had time to.
oh yeah, we talked about that last time. I was like, well, don't. I mean,
Yes.
do whatever you want, but like you're not missing much. So
Yeah.
it would be you could do like a fan page for your music. So well, brother, I appreciate your time and everyone. This is the outro for the podcast. Like I said, I'll put all of Dalton's information in the notes, and we're gonna get this episode published soon because really we've been going back and forth and talking for like a couple of months now. So we're like, yeah, let's get it out there, guys. But dude, I appreciate your time, man. Like I said, earliest morning podcast that I've done in the last 4 years. Um, I think 10 a.m. is the earliest I've done before. And then youngest person on the podcast.
Records.
Yeah, sound effect. Let's get a clap in there, guys. Like this across the screen. Dude, all right, man. Well, hey, I enjoy the rest of your day. For those of you guys listening, there's also a little end of show notes section. I have some resources there. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts because that's really about the only place you can leave a review. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Thank you guys for listening. 4 years of the Louder Now podcast, and before we know it, it will be 5 years. It will be Christmas.
Oh, I love Christmas.
Just like, wait, it's March. All right, man. Love you, brother.
All
Okay,
right, thank you.
sure.